Okay, ready?
How do I look?
You look great. Are you ready?
Yep.
Hello.
Hello. Here we are.
We're back.
Back at it.
Missed last week.
Yes. And the week before.
Well, I kind of got us through the week before, but your track record's not... Like, I never missed a week.
I'm still interning. I'm just doing what I'm told.
You've been offered the job, and you've accepted.
Well, it's the training period.
So you haven't... So you're approaching it... No.
Where's the training period?
OJT, on-job training.
Well, you're still in charge.
Well, I'm saying...
Well, last week we didn't miss it. It was nothing... It wasn't unintentional. That's what we're talking about today.
Unintentional?
Yeah, it wasn't like, oh no, we forgot to do the podcast.
No. It wasn't a... It was not a... Yeah, it was not... It was a known decision.
Right.
Not to do it. So... Let's go into that. Let's go into why last week or whatever we didn't record.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Let's go with what would be the reason for recording last week?
Kind of to check a box.
To check a box. Yeah, exactly.
Like you record every week, every Thursday. You have a podcast. We have a podcast that comes out. And so it would have been making sure that we didn't break the streak.
Yeah, the rules, the made-up rules.
Right.
Kind of, that we often subject ourselves to.
Mm-hmm.
So, we didn't record also because of, recognizing we probably needed a bit of a break.
Yeah, and I think if we back up, I mean, the week prior, yes, I know you got on, but we had a discussion about that week as well. Potentially when we were on our vacation, doing a podcast down there. And it did sort of, that was where we began thinking about like, okay, well, what is a real break? What do we need? And does that involve still doing a podcast? And it seemed a little bit counter to what we needed to say we were on a break, but then we needed to continue to check those boxes.
Yeah.
And last week was less about a vacation, but more about, you sometimes it's not just like a very clear, like, well, we said the break is from here to here. Like, it turns out that last week we still needed to honor what we needed.
Yeah. So I guess it brings up the point just to make it like applicable to everyone. Of course, there's recognizing you need a break and taking a break. And then there's resisting that because of maybe, let's just say, pressures on who you are if you take a break.
Right.
You've got people saying grind, work 18 hours a day for 10 straight years. That's how you make it to the top.
Well, it's like the hustle.
The hustle.
Everybody, like, if you're not doing it, someone else's is.
Right.
Right.
So then it's like, well, I'm a strong person. I'm an achiever. I have goals for myself. I want to be successful. I don't want to be complacent. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be a shitbag. So I can't take a week off. I can't take a day off. I can't take a month off. Yeah,
and I think it's also not just what... So sure, there's the what externally, what does that mean? And then I think, like, I know it's an easier analogy with workouts. Like, for me, sometimes it's harder to take a day off because, like, what if I lose motivation? Like, what happens with that day off? Like, can I trust myself to take a day off? What if I don't come back? And so, sure, it's like, what does that say about me? But also, is that losing momentum? Like, once you stop, can you get started again and all that stuff? But
Yeah, so what we're really talking about is doing what's right for you. Like really what's right for you.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it might be taking the break, taking time off.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it might be identifying pressures that are preventing you from doing that. Like it's obviously not a simple answer.
Right.
But generally speaking, I think what this week is maybe good to talk about is, picking yourself back up.
Sure.
After you've taken this break or after you've fallen down or, whatever, just having that resilience piece. And so for transparency, I think it probably makes sense. We probably owe it to people to be open and say there's a lot going on. We have a lot going on. There's been a lot going on, and just got to that point where it's we need to honor that.
Yeah, and I guess there's before talking about the actual, I think it's interesting looking at maybe super successful people Bill Gates or whoever you want to, Steve Jobs, they take a month off every year, but I think there's a confusion as to you can't do that until you become successful, until you've reached that, if I'm training for an Ironman, I can't start taking time off until I've done the race. And I know someone, when we were at the Do, one of the Dave Hyatt referred to this guy who was had a marketing company, and every year they took time off, shut it down for a month, and in that 1 year he missed, I guess, a call from some major, maybe it was a presidential campaign or something, and they missed it.
I think it was Obama.
Yeah, I think it was Obama. And not having that thing of I have to earn that time, or I haven't earned the time off, because the problem is, and I think we sometimes fall into that category of believing that, because by the time you then feel like you've earned it, it's way too late. And the point of the break is to be able to continue, a healthy relationship with work, and being able to take the rest day. By the time, if you're working out all the time and you're waiting till you think you've actually earned it, what is that, when your shoulder breaks?
Right.
Now you're actually set back, and then arguably you need more time to recover, versus if you just stayed ahead of the curve and took the time off. And I think we can often struggle with that. I mean, we sort of didn't even realize we hadn't taken a vacation until it was the end of July, and realizing, wow, we should probably take a break.
Yeah, and I think it's common, but I think we really view taking a break or taking time off as an emergency procedure.
Yeah.
And waiting until it's an emergency procedure or you absolutely need to. I think there's room for improvement on that, on how you approach that. And of course, we can look at the mindset behind taking a break. Generally, scarcity is fueling that. I'm going to miss something. It's not going to be enough. Maybe a lack of belief within yourself of if I step away, will I step back?
Not being able to trust yourself.
Not being able to trust yourself. Yeah, just fear of losing things. Brene Brown talks about that a lot, with looking when good times are happening.
Right.
Looking at your son or daughter, husband, wife, whomever, and feeling this sadness that this moment, which is very happy, isn't going to last forever. Right. And then therefore drives you into this scarcity-fueled negative mindset where you can't really appreciate what's being present anyway. So it's this crazy kind of a thing. So that's...
Yeah, so that week we took, I think it was good. I don't think we probably approached it, there's room for improvement there in how we took our vacation.
So we went down to Florida, visited my mom.
Yep.
on the beach. Drove down there.
Drove down.
24 hours, 25 hours on the way down.
Mm-hmm.
15 on the way back.
Right.
You're welcome.
And like 3 whole days there.
3 whole days.
So, because we had to get back because, we had a commitment.
Right.
And we had a commitment on the other end. And so, sure, it was, I don't want to say, like, it was enjoyable when we were down there. Do we think that was...
Well, I think it's like one of those things, and we had this discussion, I think the first night we got down there, where it's not a fucking light switch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, we are in Florida, and the water is very warm, and the sun is very hot, but it takes, like, a day, really.
To settle
a full 24 hours, and the drive was not that. Not that it was a bad drive, but just, like, you can't just be like, well, there's my time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a full 24 hours at a minimum in that environment for you to make that transition and settle in. Because it's not, you can't, in our experience, it's not just like, okay, we're here, boom, off.
Sure.
And that's
you have to acclimate to turning things off. And yeah. And so I don't think we gave ourselves, by the time we turned off, we sort of were ramping back up to turn on.
Right.
So, and then I think that's where it bled over. I mean, sure, we had some other family things come up the week we got back, which was last week. But I don't know that we felt...
Yeah, like recharged.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the point, that then it bleeds into... Last week, it kind of pushed us into, I think, because we didn't take the full recovery, then I think last week we were not quite ready to reemerge, and it put us sort of in this state of like paralysis, a little bit of like a freeze.
Yeah.
With how to move forward. We weren't quite ready to move forward, but we can't really move back, and so now we're just sort of like stuck.
Right. And I think it's worth looking at, like, you can't just say, this is my week of vacation, or this is my one vacation, or this event that I'm going to do, and put all of your investment into that event, that vacation, that week, or whatever, to give you this mega result.
Right.
So then it's like, along the way, what are you doing to have those little off-gas moments where you relieve some pressure, you reconnect, you shut it down. Simple, I mean, people talk about like simple things like, don't look at your phone before you go to bed, like sleep with it downstairs. Little like tips and tricks.
Simple, but somehow I don't know that we've ever done that.
So easy. Well, my phone is broken now, so it's good as I have to shut it off to charge it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Anthony Falco does that. He leaves his phone downstairs. Yeah. Which is good.
Right. And I think what's crazy is like some of those simple things, and we both have our own list, but writing, reading, not scrolling on Instagram, especially not right before bed, starting the day a certain way, like they're very simple. Yeah. Yet it's very easy to not do them.
So easy. And
then all of a sudden 3 weeks later, you're wondering why there's this buildup, and it's like, right, well, and to, I think the physical stuff is like an easy analogy to make with people. I mean, sure, it's easy to just jump in, not warm up, not do the responsible little things, getting on the reverse hyper, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And you can do it, and it's fine, and it's fine, and it's fine, and it's fine. And then all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, you can't, your shoulder hurts, your back hurts, and it's like, right, and now you have to take a week off. Not because you want to, but because you're forced to. And so that's the difference of, doing the little things leading up, and like you say, sort of making those deposits so that then you can really like get the full benefit of time off, or you're not being forced into something, or it's not because you have to, it's because you're making the choice to.
And I've made the choice to not do what I know works, especially for me.
Like, what are some of those things for you?
starting the day off with a little bit of writing,
Mm-hmm.
1 page, a little journaling. Well, the sugar now, that's been a big one.
Sugar.
I've been good with the drinking.
Yeah,
the not
drinking
drinking.
has been great.
That's been good. Not that I was, a problem beforehand.
No.
But just saying.
But still.
But that has been something that's been I've been good with. So at least there's been that. Reading.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't read, like really read.
Mm-hmm.
Workouts have been pretty good here or there, hit or miss.
Yeah, but not setting yourself up for success with a little bit of a plan.
Right.
Like you struggle with the schedule, and then the day kind of happens to you, and then you get frustrated.
Yeah.
So you need some structure.
And when I look at that, a lot of that is like I've been really trying to get the new version of the practice up and running and launch that and
right.
Refine that, and just like that's like big work project now. But to your point earlier about like, I'll wait until I get $1 billion Apple product to take a year off every 10 years. Right. It's like, I can't wait till the practice starts and we're good and everything that needs to be done for that is done, and then take a break or
right. And
get back to those things.
You're never going to be there.
No, because you need to be good for, like, you need to be continually sharpening the sword or the edge while you're using it.
Right.
So those are things that for me I haven't.
Yeah.
And those are things that I.
And what's interesting, like when you were saying that, I was thinking, well, right, like so what? It's not like you're waking up in the morning and eating a donut and watching TV. I mean, that would kind of be a dream day, but we're like getting a cup of coffee and we're chatting. And so I think it's really kind of interesting when you look at like, it's not that you're doing something destructive in place of it. And like our coffee chats are good.
Yeah.
But like it does also, and I think we really like support each other, but even when you have someone that's like super supportive, you can kind of fall into a little bit of a trap, because it's definitely comfortable, and like for you to say like, hey, like, yeah, like, can you take the dogs out and make the coffee, because I really like want to write. Or and like even for me, like I said to you the other day, I know you really support my training for this race, but I was kind of like, I feel kind of bad saying I'm gonna like get up really early and go swim or bike, because that's like our morning time. And so I think some people don't have any support at home, and that's like a real struggle. Like what's crazy is we do have support of each other, and there's still that struggle. So it's not just as simple as saying like, well, yeah, I'm just like not doing the things that I should. Like that, those little things can be a challenge. So and I think we fall into that like trap a little bit.
Right. So now it's a question of like getting back on the horse, picking yourself back on up. And we've done that we've tried to do that by not maybe every single day. Like for example, this morning I didn't write. It's okay. But have gotten back like every other kind of
getting
thing.
Back to it.
Yeah.
Slowly.
Like getting back to it and really having that be like a priority. And then also like while doing it, not so much doing it with the intention of I'm doing this so that I get better or whatever outcome, but like I'm doing this because I believe this is good for me. I know this is helpful, and I know I've fallen off the horse or whatever, and I'm getting back on. I'm getting back situated. I'm establishing that reinvestment, that deposit back into myself. And it's one of those things that if you can identify something that helps you and you believe in it, and then you have the presence and the awareness at that moment you're doing it, it then like validates
it fuels
that
and
fuel.
Continues. Yeah. I mean that's right. I lost my train of thought listening to you.
Confusion is a great tactic.
Oh, I was gonna say that I think just in that vein, it's not good either to just when things become checking the box. So we've talked about the and I know we were just talking about it last night with someone, like the oversaturation of like, okay, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna write and I'm gonna meditate and I'm gonna like check and like all this stuff, but you're really not, like, I don't know why I'm doing it, I'm just doing it mindlessly. Same thing with like workout. Okay, I did this, I did my stretching, I did this, and that's not really the idea either. So often I think it's kind of like I'm not saying it's good to fall off the horse, but it happens. So there's a moment of kind of like that, I'm not saying you hit rock bottom either, but you fell off. There's value to that lesson of like having that appreciation for those things, versus if you never fall off because it just looks like you're not actually riding the horse, you're just tied to the horse. You know what I mean? You're just going along for the ride. Sure. You're not an active rider. So I think that's the other side where it's just like, I haven't missed a day in 592 days. And it's like, but like, did you actually learn anything from it? Or are you just going through the motions? And we've talked about that with like the training for what I'm doing, like being present and learning from that, falling off, getting back on, falling off, having some doubts, versus just like, I haven't missed a training day. I've done exactly what the thing says, and therefore I'm good.
Yeah, because that's an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, before you go to free fall school, you go to the high altitude chamber, and basically it's this tube you're in that's pressurized and whatever, and they simulate you being in an aircraft and going up, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000
to see if your eardrums blow up.
Well, there's that. I was concerned about that, but that didn't happen. Then they do this like rapid decompression where if all of a sudden you're in a pressurized tube and then a hole blows through it, and like emergency response to this and that. But the most important thing as it relates to what you're fixing to do, which is jump out of an airplane at a high altitude, they put you in a hypoxic state.
Okay.
So there's like 30 different symptoms for hypoxia. So like no oxygen in the blood, essentially, is what that is. You need to know your signs and symptoms.
Because everybody has different ones.
Because everybody has different ones. Right. Like, for example, some people get nauseous. Some people get really flush. I get like pins and needles in my
lips.
Gums. Yeah, my lips, rather. And feel really flushed in the face. Some people get dizzy. Like, there's a whole list. The legend or the story is always that like there's always going to be that guy that fights it off and basically said like, no, I'm good, I'm tough. I didn't feel any of those.
Physics don't apply to me.
Yeah, like physics don't apply to me because I'm trying to be a tough guy. And it's like, right, then that's a problem. And so now you're not going to continue. You're not going to go to free fall school. You're not going to go to Halo school, whatever, because it's going to happen.
And now you don't know what to look for.
Now you don't know what to look for. Right. So not only are you a hazard to yourself, you're a hazard to your team. And you're an absolute liability. So, like, you need to know what's happening to you. Mm-hmm. Falling off the horse, having some challenges, some setbacks, some just struggles.
Yeah.
Is the same thing, And it's not so much like getting back up or reinvesting so that you can, be better, be strong or whatever. It's so that you can have that awareness of like, okay, these were the factors in play. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do.
That caused me to fall off.
This is how I approached these things that caused me to fall off.
Right.
Yeah. And then the next time you can be like, okay, I feel my gums or my lips getting tingly. I'm getting flashy, right? I'm not journaling. I'm not reading. I'm, just
right.
My
You're
workouts,
seeing the symptoms.
Seeing the signs and symptoms. I can now
mitigate that
and execute a course of action that's going to allow me to continue on.
Yeah.
Up in the sky would be hit the oxygen, sit down. Here it could be,
Yeah,
journaling,
and
whatever.
I think and I was having this discussion last night, like I think, and maybe people don't, but I think it could be, what's interesting with you and I is it seems like, well, we're so fortunate we have each other, someone to kind of hold up some flags and say like, hey, like bring the attention to the other person. And it really actually doesn't even work. Like you really have to, I can say to you like, hey, you haven't been journaling, and maybe that's helpful, but often it's got to be like an internal thing, and you have to be the one to say like, yeah, you know what, I'm really not doing the work. Because I think, again, like that could be something and that could be if you have a coach, or it could be a lot of things, like not having to still be accountable to yourself.
Yeah.
In the process, and not just being like, well, I've got a really supportive spouse and they'll let me know, or even from being that person to try to hold up the sign. If you're not in the place to be reading the sign, it doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. And we both, I think, have experienced that. And so whoever it is listening, whether you're solo or with, being able to say like, okay, I'm not missing out on something, but being accountable to yourself. So that's kind of like an important piece. So like the practice, obviously it's amazing to have the community and support, but not just leaning on that without, like, you still have to do the work, and you still have to identify those things for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's part of what I love about the practice, is that like week 1, let's just say, or even the sample workout, mm-hmm. everyone's going to get something different. Mm-hmm. There might be common themes and there might be some echoes and stuff, but like to each person, it is a 100% individual experience.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's what I think is really good about it, is that, each person has something, can approach that, can do the work, mm-hmm. find what it is to them, because memorization is not a method.
Yeah, but what's really interesting is I was thinking about like the group mentality, and like obviously each human has a different experience, but I think in so many things, like we as humans want to feel like, well, am I doing it right? Like we're all gonna have the same experience. So like a class at the gym, or people doing mindset stuff, reading a book, doing this triathlon, like often it's like, well, as long as I'm doing the cookie cutter, like, am I fitting into the mold? Because I want to make sure I fit into this mold and I'm doing it right. But that's like an impossible thing. There is no mold.
Right.
So that's, in this kind of, we could talk about, go on a total tangent, but that's kind of what we've also been saying about, like, the mold is such an easy sell to people.
Yeah.
So here's what you do, and like you're very big on not like telling people like what to do.
Right.
Same thing with diet. Like, we will never tell someone like, yes, I'm going to write you your plan. That just will not happen.
No.
Now, that is out there. Is it something that people, can monetize easily? Yeah. So I think it's like that templated thing, like there is no template, and that can be overwhelming for people for sure. But as soon as you accept that, like, the human experience, whether it's in a race, a class, work, mindset, food, whatever, there is no template. And so I think as soon as you recognize that as well, like, it sort of takes some of the pressure off, and you realize like, okay, this is a positive to have to navigate my own experience.
I saw this video. I don't know if it's real or not, but it's kind of cool. Like, it's a real video. I saw the video.
Like, you weren't sure if you
Yes, I was hallucinating
Okay.
while I was hanging upside down. It was this whole thing with like Houdini, where back in the day when he was getting started, he said he could break out of a jail cell, mm-hmm. and some like Alabama, like deep South jail was like, all right, boy, come on down. So this is like all night, all day, whatever, getting out. and he like kicked the cell or like leaned up against the door or whatever.
And it opened.
And the fuckers never locked it. And it was like, I think it's kind of a
contrived.
I think it's a bit contrived. Yeah.
What's the point?
The point is, what is the point? What were you saying? The point is that like there is no template, and that can be overwhelming. Yeah. It'd be like, what do you mean? Like, there's no guidance, there's no plan, there's no like, just follow this, just do that. There's no blueprint. But that is not like, that's liberating. That's not going to like jail you and contain you. That's going to liberate you because it's like, it's there. It's within you. Right.
And as soon as there's like a template, you're either following it or you're off it. On, off. Like, and we've, had a lot of clients like that refer to themselves as like, I'm on or I'm off. Or even saying like off the horse or on the, it's not that. It's not a linear thing. And that also, because that can be a failure point just because now it's so defeating that like, I'm off. Off of what? I mean, like you said, it's sort of a made up
the rules.
Thing.
The rules are so made up.
Yeah.
The boxes are made up. I think checking the box is locking that jail cell. Yeah. Is literally, I remember that drawing I did. I should put that up.
Bill's writing a book on Bill's metaphors and analogies. He's got.
This is a picture.
So now we have the jail cell. There's a.
No, this is a coffin.
Oh.
Yeah, much better.
I mean, really, much worse than a jail cell.
That's right.
So just because I had like kind of a thing on that this week, and I think it's kind of cool to tie in like your coaching, like how it does help to have some support. I'm like very much about, I know in the past I've thrived on like, I just want to know that there's a really nice box, there's a really nice check mark, and I did all the right things. I think you would agree. Like,
you love checking that box.
Yeah. I love the
list.
I love the list. I love like, did I do it right? Am I on?
Yeah.
And I think I've definitely made progress in realizing like that was a self-imposed prison.
Yeah, for sure.
But this like half Ironman, that was more, not really a physical challenge. I mean, yes, of course it is physically challenging. But for me, like, I think the real challenge was all the other things that came along with it. And one of those things was definitely like not feeling like I had to conform, or like there was that pressure, like, am I doing this right? And am I doing what everybody else is doing? All these other people are checking all these boxes and I've got unchecked boxes, and what does that mean? And then it does start to, and I'm saying this because I had that experience of starting to project then. Well, there's boxes unchecked that were made up by a endurance organization of like, hey, if you're going to do this, this is what you should do. And now that means that I'm not going to finish, do well, do whatever, whatever. And so for me, I think that was like a really big lesson, kind of a culmination probably of like we say, like, you can have these experiences and lessons and learning them, but if you don't put them to a test, how do you really know? And so for me, this was kind of one of those tests. Like, I can say I've made progress and I'm not counting macros and I'm doing all these things, but for me, this was a sort of, all right, let's see what you got. Similar to like the games with some other things. And I think that what's interesting is kind of for us falling off the horse or whatever we're saying over the last couple of weeks, it did give me some time to stop and like, have that awareness versus just continuing on and not realizing till it's like after.
But you were able to, the awareness is fine. It's great. Like, okay, awareness, check, need that. But you have to follow through with it with action.
Right.
And there needs to be something that you're willing and able to do based on that awareness. Like, we didn't.
So for me, what was that?
Well, why don't you tell us?
Yeah, you mean, so awareness was like, okay, I'm kind of falling into the trap of like looking at these things and making a projection on like what I did, what I didn't do, what that's going to mean.
Yeah.
And that definitely put me into a hole
Yeah.
of a lot of doubt and like, why am I doing this and all that stuff. And I think after our conversation, it was right, the missing piece that we talked about. And again, this could be a whole different tangent, but it did provide me the space and time to then investigate that, like, okay, what was lacking when you don't have those boxes to check is like just the underlying belief.
Yeah.
So I think the boxes and the rules and all that stuff is a mask for really like having that belief. Like, you can have belief and still have a plan. We're not saying like, well, I really believe that I can go and do, 50 Ironmans in 50 days. Like,
yeah, no, you can't.
I can't, you know, because I haven't done the responsibility. Because you haven't put the work in. Yeah.
Because you haven't, yeah.
Right. But having a balance of like, okay, I'm believing because of both, like, okay, I'm not just making this up, I mean, I have the foundation, I have this belief in myself, my ability, all those things, but not just being distracted by like a bunch of boxes. Because the problem is on race day, I think at some point, whatever that race day is for people, the boxes kind of and that stuff, like your point, like it doesn't hold up. It's not enough. Mm-hmm. Holding up those papers and training documents, I mean, like, I did all this, but why am I still feeling like, so like, I don't know, like, I can't. It's because you never believed. You just masked it with all the
checking the boxes. You check enough boxes, and what you're really doing is you're trying to weave a safety net.
Right.
And you check these boxes as ways to mitigate some sort of potential negative thing from happening. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Like, it does not matter. You can do everything right, and there can still be a catastrophic thing that happens.
Sure.
And that was something that I was very blunt with you about.
Yeah, so you told me I could get kicked in the head in the first 200 meters of the swim and have a mycosalo experience, and that would be the end. You actually said, and shit myself in the water.
That's right.
So there's that. So yes, that could happen. And all the boxes in the world being checked and whatever.
Yes.
So yes, that's exactly what you said.
That's right.
But I was recalling yesterday to someone that you also had we've had this before, and I don't think I was at that time I was able to make the progress or see it as clearly. I mean, in that moment I did, but at regionals the last year I competed, it was a little different, but
for sure.
Kind of wanted to feel sorry for myself, whatever, and you kind of reminded me of, but I think at that point it was too late. That's an example of it was too late. It was the last day of the competition. I was struggling and I hadn't done the belief work. Yeah. And at that point, sure, we could kind of salvage and end on a high note of appreciation, but it was too late to really say like, hey, you got to believe and you're going to do your heat in an hour. So, but I think also tying it back to what we started out with, like vacation and things like that, because not everybody's doing a race or some event or competition, checking the boxes of work or the things that look like self-improvement, personal development, like, okay, I'm doing all these things, but like deep inside you don't have that internal like belief in like what you're doing. Because if you really believe in what you're doing, like, then okay, like I can take a break. It's going to be okay. And like those sorts of things. So I think it all does, tie together in terms of your course that you're on.
Yeah. I think we should talk about confidence and belief next week.
Yeah.
Maybe we should record it. Maybe we should. Doesn't matter. That's not for here. But confidence, just as like an insight, a foreshadowing. Confidence is something that is 100% external. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think that have confidence in yourself. It's all about the external.
Right.
Belief is about the internal. Pottery, talked about this.
Another metaphor. Going in the book.
If you're, and I don't know anything about pottery, but
we all know that.
Yes, that's right. Other than what I've seen on
Ghost.
Ghost.
The movie.
Yeah. Anyway.
Which is really a sex scene, not about pottery. But go on.
Well, okay. You're killing me here. You're killing me. There's no doubt that you made a pot.
If you sat down, you
sat
put the
down,
clay down.
You're at the
wheel.
You're molding the clay. It collapsed. You got it back. Had a little bit of, in between. Got back to the wheel.
Fixed it.
It's a pot. It's a pot.
Yeah.
There is no doubt that you made a pot. You believe it is a pot because you were involved in the process of building that thing.
Yeah.
The flaws, everything. But your confidence is like, well, are people going to like it?
Your pot is ugly. It's lopsided.
Excuse me.
And it sucks.
Excuse me.
So your confidence is low.
How dare you? My pot will be used for the example of what not to do.
Okay.
Anyway, the confidence is like, I don't know, how strong is the pot? Is it,
all the external characteristics of
all the external stuff, and it's like you have no idea, but like it's you but so anyway, so I think that a lot of times it's like this confidence you might not have. Conversely, especially like with the swim, there should be, quote unquote, no reason why you're suffering from a lack of confidence.
Right. I can swim. I have done the distance. It is possible.
Right. It was because like the belief wasn't there.
Right.
And so that's where it's about the process, about the involvement, about the training, and about that consistency of action, but also like bringing that to life by having the presence and the awareness during it.
Yeah.
That what you're doing is you're investing and you're depositing in your belief. Like it doesn't just, it's not, otherwise it's just Tinkerbell and like wishing upon a shooting star kind of thing. Like that's not it.
Right. It is belief has to be grounded in something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so having that confidence versus belief and really digging into them and looking also at some of the issues, like especially when we use our words. If you were to say to someone like, I believe this, that, or the other, there is an exposure element there. That's kind of like that's unsettling for some folks, versus like the confidence thing, like maybe like I think and I believe are different too.
Yeah, and then we're going to talk about this next week, but there's conviction then involved in that and all that. But I think for this week, just to keep you on.
Keep me on. This is why you're
the
here.
Co-host is for us, like moving forward. Yes, we still have the same things that we had in our life 2 weeks ago going on. Our list of stuff. I think for us, one of the things we've decided is in that similar way of making deposits, like we need to make more frequent deposits too. And maybe it's a day,
Sure.
Maybe it's a coffee date. Maybe it's those things where, there's that versus waiting for another 12 months to take a vacation.
And that's the difference between that and the hack. Because the hack is like, I'm going to wear blue blocker sunglasses, sleep with a thing on, get a weighted mattress or get a weighted blanket, drop the AC down to 62, meditate, journal, hot cold therapy, all of these things, because they say, here's them again about whatever that outcome is.
Right.
And it's just like, that's not what we're saying. We're not saying, here's this list of hacks, but it's like, look within, identify some things.
Checking in and
action. Yeah.
So that's our plan, and getting back to it, and we're gonna both be. We did kind of fall off. We started watching TV.
Oh God.
Which we don't normally do, and it's one show, and it's really good, and we had to catch up on like one full season, and it is interesting. I know we're kind of kidding, but like what that does to all the other positives. Because we just sat there and we were like, oh, another episode.
Yeah,
and,
it's the worst.
We weren't writing, and you kind of just like, it is sort of just not being present at the very worst.
So you're saying basically that I was right. Please, for the camera.
Well,
Look
we
into
can...
the camera.
I'm not going to give you that on camera in this sooner.
Good.
We got a lot of years left, Bill.
Yeah.
So yes, so moderation. Now it's once a week.
Yeah. And you can enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
But,
okay,
yes.
cool. Enough
Okay,
at TV, all right? Enough of talking about TV. Okay, so we have the practice starting
September
1. 5 spots left. No more. Don't care about the numbers. I do, but I don't. Want to have the quality, want to have the experience. This group is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a kind of a diverse group, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
So there's that.
What else is there? I think that's it.
I mean, that's it for...
That's it, yeah.
I have a race.
For that kind of thing. Of course, you have the race.
So we're going to go to Lake Placid, and
yep,
we
you
still have one
have
more
half
podcast
Ironman,
before that.
not a mini Ironman.
You're going to be my support crew.
Right.
And not a mini.
What is it? No, but the mini would be what, just a try?
I don't think there's a mini.
Oh,
It's
okay.
half and full.
Half and full. So we have that, and yeah, feels good to be back. Hopefully this was not too rusty. And
Okay.
we'll look forward to talking next week. Next week will be
September 3rd.
September 3rd, and then
No,
that week,
4th.
and then that weekend will be the race. But we'll talk about confidence, belief, maybe a little bit of a
Pump my tires a little bit.
pump your tires, yeah, deflate them. You don't
Not
want
like literally pump them.
Oh, you wanted
because
to actually
of my
pump
bike.
them.
I'm biking. It involves a bike.
Remember the other night when you said you just want to eat chocolate and not ride your bike when you're having a little temper
I
tantrum?
was having a breakdown. I said I don't want to ride my bike. I just want to go. No, I want to eat ice cream. It wasn't chocolate. I want to eat ice cream, go to sleep, and not ride my bike.
And I laughed in your face.
Yes. Step 1 of coaching. Laugh in your client's face. Okay.
All right.
Goodbye.
See ya. That's funny.
Okay, we have to go.
Yeah.